There's one major message for this month. Don't stop dreaming. The vision isn't done. Let's talk about all of it in the August 2025 Energy Report. I'm your host, Candace Johnson. This is Lightworker Radio, the channel for the channelers. All of the Lightworkers, please come forward. This month is set out to be a big one. I've got a lot of information for you, and we've got a lot of major movement. First of all, let me just say welcome Uranus into Gemini, out of Taurus. Taurus was very earthy. It left with a bang, met it, earthquakes, Uranus, Taurus, change, Earth. Okay. And now it just moved into Gemini. So we had a lot of earthly traumas as it was making its move. And now it's going to be all about change in communication, how we're communicating. And because Uranus is so attached to Aquarius and this idea of rebellion and Pluto being in Aquarius and this transformation we're trying to make on the planet right now, I think this is going to be a lot about changes in media, changes in the way we communicate with each other, the way that the system communicates, the way that information is shared all around. And this is 7 years that this planet will now be in Gemini. So just if you just think back 7 years, you automatically see how much change has happened already, especially on Earth in the physical. Now watch that change with air energy, and that's where we're headed. Now, Uranus is going to go back into Taurus in November for a retrograde before making its final move next year in 2026, where these changes will be locked into place. So expect to see a lot of messy media stuff. Expect to be able to communicate with people differently. And I keep getting in my mind the idea of telepathy coming into play in a lot more of our conversations and how we learn about energy and what information is shared without noise or in the electromagnetic field. And this all seems to resonate with this Uranus, Aquarius, rebellious, Pluto transformation energy. So expect changes, and that means that you are changing internally as well. And a lot of that change is going to be how you communicate and how authentic that communication and that expression is to fit into the alignment of your highest potential as we move forward. So everything that you're doing right now should be to express yourself to your max, and that's where we're headed. And what you're going to be expressing yourself in and how to, that's what we're really going to cover today. And obviously I have an art activation for you at the end we'll go over with symbolism, but I really want you to consider maximizing your expression to the utmost. Okay, I'm trying to cover major planets before we get into any nitty gritty details. Another major planetary marker is Saturn and Neptune, which are sitting at the same degree in Aries. So you've got this major planet that talks about structure and discipline and the systems that we do need to integrate and the law and just this rigid way of doing things that is required for building something, partnered with Neptune, the dreaming planet, the Akashic records, the memory of your blueprint, really entangled together, both in retrograde at the peak, the highest energetic expression of Aries at 1 degrees. Okay. So I want to go over the gene keys for this because I think those are major. And I want to go over what this energy means. Now, Saturn is a slow moving planet. It takes about 7 years to go around the sign. And Neptune's a super slow moving planet. It takes much longer than that. So, and it's a big sky. They don't meet together very often, but they're meeting together now and they will be together for a while. And this hasn't happened in around 36 years. So it's a big change. All right. And you have to remember that Saturn is, again, over the thing that you are building on Earth. And Neptune is ensuring, sitting with Saturn, that it fits this aligned blueprint that you came in with, that this soul mission, this you have two missions. You have a soul mission and you have a life mission. Your soul mission is an overarching mission that your higher self takes on through lifetimes for an experience or to do something. Your life mission, on the other hand, is what you came to do within a lifetime. It fits into your higher soul mission, but it's also, there are singular focuses here of things that you came in to collect. All right. And with Saturn and Neptune super close to each other in Aries, which is like the birth of creation, right at the center of the flame of the birth of creation, right at the point of bursting out of the ground, you have this new thing trying to come into form through you on Earth. So expect that to be there for a while, and to be getting more information on what you're actually building, ensuring that it's going in the right direction. And with both of these planets retrograde, I think it's about going back. And I'm going to talk about this a lot because this is another major theme, is like, we are at this place where it's time for us to go out and get the seeds that we cast. Okay. So if you think of Virgo as being where the sun will be at the end of the month, as being like the abundant harvester, right? So to properly harvest your abundance, you've got to know where you planted all your seeds so that you can go back to that place and check on your growth. Okay. And we're going to go into this next as I finish this, but I want you to think of all of those seeds that have been cast, was that through your entire lifetime and multiple lifetimes before this one. Okay. Nuggets from the past are ready to be harvested, pruned, looked after. That's what's coming in for me. Okay. Now, this is connected to gate 25 in the I Ching, the gene keys, and the human design. And gate 25 is all about constriction. That's the shadow. Acceptance is the gift. And the Siddhi is universal love. Okay. Now, when we think of constriction, I want you to think about, especially because this is at the beginning of Aries, I want you to think about two kind of plants. Okay. I want you to think about a wildflower that's left to grow in nature as it would through the sun and the rain and the wind and the birds, pollen, all of the things pollinating. And then I want you to think of a plant that is grown under specific conditions, restricted conditions. Specific light source comes in at a certain time. Let's say it's in a dark room with the scientists. Okay. Which plant do you think is going to grow better? Right? Okay. So as we are bringing up this new idea or this new revelation, really, on what we truly desire based on our heart's desire, which is where our mission lies, right? Our life mission. And we are redefining these structures or these things that we are building on Earth. As that seed is starting to take sprout, let's say the roots are coming out of the bottom and the little stem is coming, the stamen is coming up to the top, and it's just at the crest of the soil. Okay. Or it's a couple, let's say it's a couple millimeters before the crest of the soil. Okay. All the conditions of the soil, how hard is it to break this dream out? How hard is it for you to grow this plant as wild and as free and as large as it would like to be in our current system? Okay. And how, when we release the boundaries, which is the quantum jump from 3D, 4D to 5D, 4D, it's going to increase that boundary space. We can go to this other place where we become limitless. And we remember that we are not bound by the body or the 3D reality. And when we recognize that these boundaries are belief systems, structures that have been implemented through matrix programming to keep the plant from growing as large as it would like to, and that those illusions don't have to be a part of the game, you go to a place of acceptance because you're existing within alignment with the things around you, which allows you to exist as that plant. And we need many of them in the reality of universal love, where we allow everything to grow out to the space that it would like to and not restrict its freedoms from being able to. Okay. And let's think about this as being a universal planet, not necessarily just personal. It affects all of us as a collective. And that's a major energy that's trying to come through each of us. So hear this, okay? These these degrees, these planets are gonna be playing together, Neptune and Saturn, for a long time, for a year. They're going to be sitting together. Okay. And they have three major aspects that are happening. So June 29th, 2025, they were both in 29-degree Pisces. And then we have August 6th, 2025, where they're both in retrograde at 0. And then we have February 20th, 2026, where they're both in direct in Aries. So you've got this backwards energy and this forward energy, almost like if something is really like trying to ensure that everything comes with it, it kind of like backs up and gathers more before it spins around again. Okay. So in that time space, we've got some major changes that could take place. I had to look up what happened. March 3rd, 1989 was the last time we had this 36-year cycle, and it was in Capricorn. And the fall of the Berlin Wall, the Soviet Union collapsed, and things dissolved. They said global ideologies and structures dissolved or transferred. And it's like, it's a disillusion of dreams. It's a breaking down of structures that don't work and a rebuilding of the ones that do, and bringing in a new form of reality. Now, this is pretty poignant because it's in Aries, which we know is like the beginning of the year astrologically or energetically when spring is happening, right? So this is a real fresh start into something. Okay. We don't know exactly what, but we'll find out. I think I said this before that like my guides keep saying we're in dress rehearsal. Okay. And 2026 is this year where all of these changes that we have spent all this time implementing and what you are kind of doing right now, you're starting to get into the groove of, right? But you aren't fully, it's not fully realized yet, but you can taste it and touch it and smell it and play with it. Uh, and this winter, when all of these major planets that have moved into new signs go back retrograde, okay, it really is the last dance of pulling what you need from that energy. And so often we think of retrogrades as like breakdowns and terrible things like the Mercury retrograde now, but like in reality, it's the most divine time to actually fix and get and do the last of the things you need to do for your story. Okay. So imagine it's like supermarket sweep and you got to go back into the room and grab up all that you can hold with your hand before you run out of the door and take it to your vision. And you had this supermarket sweep in February. You had this supermarket sweep in like May. You know how to go and get it. And you know you have to go through mostly shadow and deep in you to do it. So prepare for that energy, and we'll talk about it a little bit more later, but just put that in your mind as we transition over into talking a little bit about reality and Leo for a second and the sun. So while all of these slow moving planets are transforming us, okay, we've got the sun right now focused in Leo with Mercury, smashed up against each other. Your walkie talkie to source, and your focal point right now is within the concept of what you are creating. And I want to talk to you about creation from a more mathematical, time travel kind of perspective for a minute, because I want you to consider that with these major planets in with the sun and the Mercury, I'm not going to say major planets, I'm just going to say with the focal point now being on Leo, and you've got this Saturn Neptune major planet, and you've got Pluto transforming in Aquarius, and you got Uranus just moving into communication. Now you've got this focal point again on like what you're creating in this reality, including the 4 points that you see in front of you. Okay, from that perspective, now look at your creativity. From, are you able to birth things in, are you using constriction, or are you using your ultimate ideas of freedom to create something in this reality? Okay, so I don't know about you, and I don't know how your month went, but like ideas have just been coming in like candy. And like Neptune is associated with the Akashic records, and I felt like I was listening to something about the Akashic Records, and I thought, I'd like to go to the Akashic Records. And then for 3 days, I had a headache, and like I felt like I was there all 3 days. I just had notes and notes and notes and notes and notes. And I kind of saw like an idea, a preview of all the things that have to be accomplished for this 2026 no longer dress rehearsal or stage play of reality. Okay. So expect more of that. I'm going to switch over for a second to talk about this first week of August. The theme is the end of the mountain. It's heaven over mountain in the human design in the I Ching paradigm. And it's connected to gate 33, which is retreat. So this week is a real still week. Okay. Now, stillness and action, we talked about this before, go together. And if you think of a fly and a spider, this is a great thing that just came to me. Okay. A fly and a spider is hunting the fly, and how still the spider is until he can make just the right move to get the fly. And that's where that mountain stillness comes from. It is for aligned, direct action where when you strike, you're going to get it. With the heavens being over that, you're getting all of this light code information coming down to you in this state of stillness on where to strike, act, move, adjust, align for this next phase, which is water. Okay, so then we went from a mountain phase for 6 weeks, and now we're moving into a water phase for 6 weeks, which is going to be emotions and reflections and, seeing yourself in the reflection of that pond, right? When you look at yourself in the pond, if there's a lot of mud and gunk in the pond, you're not going to like that reflection. It's not going to look good. If the pond is churning really quickly, it's not going to be an even, clean reflection for you to see. In the stillness, if nature is beautiful that day and the pond is still and everything is just right, that reflection is perfect, but that reflection isn't your identity. You are the one actually causing it, right? So just because it looks murky there, you just have to still that water so that the mud can settle. That doesn't mean you have to do anything to you to make that mud settle, if you understand where I'm going with that. Okay, so let's talk about Mars, which is currently in Virgo, which is where that abundance is. So you begin to drive a lot about what you're creating to make it really juicy, make it really good, make it really valuable, make it really worth your time. Again, sowing those seeds and looking out. Mars is looking out like that seed ready, that seed's ready. Didn't we plant something over there a couple of years ago? We need to go check that plant. And then it's going to move into Libra, all about like connection and taking this idea and like connecting other elements to it, maybe collaborating in partnerships. That's where your juice is going to be at the end of the month. Now, Venus and Jupiter are in Cancer, and Venus will scoot over to Leo at the end of the month, but currently she and Jupiter are in Cancer. So you got harmonizing, beauty, enrichment, nurturing, love, partnered with expansion, luck, growth, boom, right? In Cancer, which is like inside this shell, inside this confine, you've got some harmonizing happening and some expansioning happening in the spirit. All right. It's within the emotions, it's within the releasing of false beliefs, within the expansion of the spirit is where we're going right now. And then when she is in Venus, scoots over to Leo towards the end of the month. Once she has expanded the inner portions, now she can look at the outer shell, that force, that fire that is Leo, and she can say, I know now emotionally where I want my creativity and my harmony to be. It's time for me to go out into Leo and to like put it into the actual reality, into the world, before I head over to Virgo, where I now know the plants, these seeds for this idea that I'm bringing into form. Okay. So all of these planets are working towards one very collective goal right now. For me, it's kind of written all over the place. Let's go into the science behind this experience that we're in, partnered with what we're now calling, this is not my term. I listened to an interview and I got this term, the Ascension Timeline. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the Virgo experience. Okay, so I want you to imagine that you've cast these seeds out. You're a multidimensional human being over many lifetimes, okay? And now this time is calling us to collect all of this, to harvest to reap what we've sown, pretty much, in a good way, a bad way, or whatever you've thrown out or cast out as a seed. And to truly understand this, I want you to remember that what you call God, the source of all, is one light who scattered that light out. You could think of it as an implosion or an explosion, okay? And we are those tiny scattered light beings, right? And to scatter the light out, it all connects. It's not separate. That's an illusion. All of this light shines and illuminates from the original source, which is what highlights you. Okay. Now, in the same time, you as your own source could be considered the big circle. And these tiny circles you see here are also the storylines that you have cast out. These are the seeds that you've thrown out. And again, all of these lines are connected. So you can really think of it like lightning or like branches on a tree. And I want you to think of yourself as the big light and all of these connecting streams to these other dots. I want you to think of these key component or experiences. And the dots represents all the experience that you gathered, and the lines represent that storyline you went on to go and get that experience. Okay. Now, I've been thinking about this a lot because as we think about the idea of evolution, initially my thoughts were around this idea that we kind of like go back in time to, like, say, starting at the end of the branch and are going back in time to collect things to get back to source. But then I thought, no, that's not what's happening. That's not evolution. That would be de-evolution. We'd be shrinking our light down into one source. In reality, what you're doing is you are connecting and collecting these experiences from your other timelines, okay? And as you connect them, your light grows. And that giant light that you cast off, because you take in more light from source as you collect the gifts from these experiences. I want you to think of them as gifts. It then the light connects naturally larger than shrinking back. It's like we're all upping our light to cast a larger reflection towards the highest light. And that's a growth, that's not a shrink. So each experience that you've had in all of these lifetimes, you are now utilizing in this experience like a soup or a puzzle or strokes on a paint canvas to create this larger picture, this bigger idea. Talents that you had before. And I'm not talking just about your childhood, but there too, and your teenagehood and your collegehood. You need to be going back with this Saturn and this Neptune and this Mercury retrograde, especially right now, going back and picking up the pieces of yourself that you may have stopped that experience, but that's because you got enough, right? You might have stopped that lifetime, but you gathered something. There are experiences where you've done everything that you're doing now, the things that you really enjoy. They are lighting you up to bring them into this reality. And it's literally calling more of yourself in, okay? Calling more of your light and then transmuting more of your shadow. That is the process that we are currently working on. So bring in more of those hidden talents. And if you notice that you are enjoying something and you feel frustrated that you're not better at it, call in that version of yourself that was good at it and watch it accelerate quicker. Now, to get the most of this experience this month, for a minute, we have to talk about time and space. Okay. So if you are watching this instead of listening to this, there is a diagram on the screen now of a wave, a three-dimensional wave inside a box. And the box only has two sides because it's open. Okay. You're looking into the box. Space is the location, it's the boundary that an experience happens in. In your 3D reality, you could consider all of this space that is yours right now is what you can see. Okay, let's just put it there. It's, you're in a box. All right, that's the space. Time, on the other hand, is all the objects within that space and the movement of each of those objects within this confine. Okay, so if you were to even look in the room that you're sitting in right now, you would notice a couple of things. You'd obviously notice the floor, you'd notice the wall, you'd notice, the lamp. Okay. All of those things seems like they're unmoving, but remember, everything is movement. even right now with the moon transiting over the earth, it's moving everything and it's like waves. You don't see it, you don't feel it, but it's happening. So there is nothing in your reality that is still. Okay. Now, even if you think of like if you have a fly in the room, it's kind of going in a loop. I want you to think about that in a space covering a specific distance. All right. Within a pattern. Now, this is kind of related to the idea of time travel. And I want you to think of the statement that, like, you can never step in the same river twice, meaning you cannot go back in time to a specific scenario, but you can recreate the components of that time and visit a version of it, which would create a new reality within that time that includes you. I'm pointing at me, but I mean you, okay? Or me, anybody. Okay, so let's break it down even more. Especially if you're looking at the screen, you'll notice that this 3D wave is a little dots forming the shape, okay? Tiny little dots that all equal out to the shape of a three-dimensional wave, okay? Each of these tiny dots, we're going to consider right now the Planck scale. And what the Planck scale is, the smallest measurable moment of time. Okay. In this room, I have plants. There's probably a fly buzzing around. The plant is moving. The fly is moving. Remember, the floor, the earth, everything is moving. And each of those micro movements collectively and individually create their own time frame. And that could be a mathematical equation. The equation would include the location of the space, and the time would be the exact components within that space, longitude, latitude, where it is. Okay, so these are components or directions. All right. If by chance, for some reason, you had the quantum energy required to put these into a calculator and spit out a scene, you would get a frame that looked exactly the same. But because your energy is also perceiving it, you've switched it so it becomes a new time. I just want you to know about this idea of everything is unfolding through movement via a space that it is already covered. So if you consider space to be a boundary, every single thing in that boundary had to be measured for it to exist. So all of these experiences are happening, have happened, will always happen in time. And it's almost like a capture or a frame or a memory collected within time. But because time is not real, it never ends. It's always happening. The only thing that shifts is the energetic current or movement. And each micro movement has its own frame in the storyline or in the movie. Okay. And it's like your consciousness has never moves at all. This frame is moving past you constantly. Okay. Within this frame of movement, where everything is micro moving, because you never step into the same river twice, every moment is new. Remember that. It's what you bring to it that makes it what it is, but you have a new opportunity every billionth of a second. All right. Also, time changes constantly. Movement happens all the time, simultaneously. It never ends. Remember, everything is movement. But space doesn't change that much. We don't notice a difference in the actual space unless we leave our comfort zone and go somewhere else, right? Except for now. This is why I'm going here. 3D reality was a specific boundary. 4D reality is seeing outside of that boundary. 5D is existing within and outside of that boundary simultaneously. The boundary of the expression has grown on this timeline of space. And if you were to think of space as being a century or even a room, it's a theme that the objects within emanate to give off an idea of the time and the space. Okay. So a theme could be the Middle Ages. Everything within that space is going to look like the Middle Ages. It's going to be weird if you see a computer there, right? And you can think of now, like all of these little components that make it look like that time in that space kind of go together. All right. but the space has changed. So the game has changed, which is why switching up the energy report was so important right now, because we are on the Ascension Timeline. This space is morphing and changing, and the boundaries that we can express within, you can say that the shackles are down. Okay. So every expression can reach larger than it has before. There is nothing holding it back. That's where I'm going with this. So now I'm going to show you the energetic energy of the month, which is, if you're on the podcast, it is the poster for this month. Okay. So it's time to go back in and pick up more treasure that you left behind and write your story. The pen is yours. You have to go on the adventure to write it in real time, but we are going back into these depths of the experience to pick up more treasure from the other side. Okay. And that is the theme of this. The blank page represents, obviously, you writing the story. It's yours to write. The treasures and the mountains on the other side of the page are obviously the journey that you're trying to get to. It's shining and it's waiting for you. No one else is there. These long tunnel to get to the kingdom, that's what you got to go through. The light codes at the top are your guides. You got to go back in. I don't know what this experience is going to be like. I'm not quite sure it's going to be an exact death of the spirit or dark night of the soul. All I know is that we've got to traverse through the back to Pisces energetically, back to the womb space, back to the place of stillness, back to the 3 days of darkness idea. That's the darkness. It's the womb. It's not bad energy. If you understand the actual history behind the storytelling and you recognize that the light and the dark are both from source. 3 days of darkness, I'm just going to put this in here because I'm doing an entire series on the end of the world as we know it, coming soon. If you look at the Book of the Dead, 3 days is where you spend time before you meet your maker. If you properly exit without getting into the reincarnation wheel, you go to 3 days of darkness where you sit in the space of purification before you can enter the gates or the kingdom or your holy home or go back to source for your rest between lifetimes. Those 3 days are not a punishment, a prison, or hell. Those 3 days are a moment in the womb space, just like when you came here, you spent a moment in the womb space to purify the spirit, to ensure that as you cross the threshold or the boundary, you don't bring none of the mess with you. Okay? Thank you. Now, we're going back in. You gotta write your story. You could do this physically, you could do this mentally, but you know when you're there. If you're creating something, if you're creating a business, if you are working on a dream, a passion, a project, okay? And you feel like you have competition, you're not done yet. I've been having this conversation a lot. I'm back if you need some consulting on your business, especially if you're in the skincare space or the wellness space. That's my wheelhouse, or the sustainable market of ethical businesses that I'm trying to put into reality. When you create from a place of genius, using your blueprint, your divine mission on this earth, what you create cannot be copied because you're the only person that could have thought of it. It came from all of the seeds that you've sown throughout your lifetimes. And it comes from the background. It comes from your personal story that adds the juice, the extra flavor, the salt, the enhancer that makes your creation stand out from everyone else. Not that everyone else's is bad, but you now have a unique offering that does not look copied or cookie cutter. Instead, you have something authentic that resonates with you, that you can proudly show and say, this is my creation. Okay. And It has your story in it and your history and your lineage and all of these extra components that you cannot find anywhere else, which is where you stand out amongst the crowd that is being a sheep, that is copying. And it's also where your light in this creation shines so bright that the person who it is meant for, and when you created it, before you created it, it was meant for someone else, or it wouldn't have come into reality. I need you to know that it is because you're not the only one who wanted it. It's bigger than that, okay? But it shines so damn bright that they can instantly, they know this one is for them. They know that one's not for them, but they can't really figure out why. Now it's not even a question in their mind. They have to go with you, okay? There is a place you can go that is that divinely unique to your experience, that really feels like you so much more. It has your imprint. And that doesn't mean that you couldn't have a team or have someone else do it or have someone else help you with it. But then they are implementing the vision of you. And that then stays on earth for longer. And that's how you build legacy. Okay. So this is all I have for you this month. It's time for you to rewrite your story. Going on your hero's journey, going back to the cave where your treasure are. You've been there before. You know what you picked up earlier this year. It was really good, right? You got more there. So now you know the route. Now you know the way. Shouldn't be so scary. Get in, get out, get what you need. Look in all the dark places and remember that you're the light. And you get to write how well it goes for you. And that is the experience that you will have. That is all that I have for you this month. I'm Candace with Lightworker Radio, channel for the channelers. This month, I've been diving so deep into Revelations and the Nag Hammadi and the Book of the Dead and the Book of Enoch to bring you a clear, concise concept on what everybody says about the end of the world, including even prophecies that I've pulled, okay? So that you have one place to go to learn about all of it from an unbiased position, okay? So I'm going to bring you all the stories that everybody done said, and you decide for yourself what calls to you and what you don't vibe with. All right. We can have a whole discussion about it if you like. Other than that, that's all I have for you today. Thank you for being here with me. Have a wonderful, wonderful month and happy visioning.